Okay, in this video we're going to do two things. The first thing that we're going to do is name all the sets to which these numbers belong, because these can belong to more than one set. So when I look at 2/3, 2/3 is basically written as a fraction. So it tells me that that one is a rational number. Now what I notice is it doesn't divide in evenly. I don't get a whole or a natural number of it. So this is the only group that can belong to. Now the square root of 20, it does have a negative in front. But the square root of 20 is not a perfect square. So that tells me that one is going to be irrational. Because when I put the square root of 20 into a calculator, I'm going to get a decimal eventually that's never going to end and never going to repeat. Now when I come to number 3, here the 7.2, and it has a little line over it, that tells me that 2 is repeating. And if it repeats, I can end up writing that as a fraction. So that means that this one is also a rational number. And again, that's the only group it belongs to because it has that decimal point. Now here I have 12 over 4. It is a fraction. So that tells me that this is a rational number. But what I have to remember is that 12 divided by 4 does give me 3. So that tells me, oh, I have 3, which is that answer for that. Well, 3 is one of my natural numbers because it's a counting number. And it's also a whole number. And because it's a positive, it is also an integer. So you have to put each number basically and talk about the groups that it belongs to. And it can belong to more than one group on the rational side. If it's an irrational, that's the only group it belongs to. Now let's take a look here. They want me to fill these in with a true, with the statement either less than, greater than, or equal to. Well, what I need to do is basically get the decimal that I want to compare it to. So 3.2 is really going to just stay 3.2. But the square root of 10, I need to turn into a decimal. And the thing you need to do is basically use a calculator. You have a calculator probably on your Chromebook or your iPad. You also have one that's on the phone, and you do have that square root key. So I'm going to plug in 10. And I'm going to hit the square root key. So now when I look at this, if I go, I'll go one place after decimal. 3.16. Now I'm not going to continue on going. I'm just going to go 2 places after the decimal. Now I'm going to make these the same length by adding a 0 there. So now I'm comparing 3.16 to 3.20. Now if I look, the 3's match, but here's my difference between the 1 and the 2. The 2 is bigger, so 3.2 is bigger than the square root of 10. Now, let's take a look here at number 6. Okay, I have 5 1/6, and I have 5.16, and the line is just over the 6. So it's 5.1, and I can go 6, 6, and it just keeps on going. I'm only going to go maybe 3 places after a decimal. Now here I have this 5. But I need to change this fraction here to a decimal. So I'm going to take that 5, or that 1/6. I'm going to go 1. I'm going to divide it by 6. And I get 1. So if you notice, I get 1 point. And that 6 just keeps on going. So that tells me that these two are actually equal. So now I come to this last one, number 7. I have 2.21 repeating. And it tells me that 21 keeps on repeating. It keeps on just going and going and going. Now I'm going to take the square root of 5.2. So again, I'll take the calculator, I put 5.2, and I hit my square root key. And here I get 2.280, and I can just keep on going. But I only need to go a few places to start to compare. So when I look, okay, the 2's match. These 2's match, but here's my difference between that 1 and that 8. And I say, oh, that 8 is bigger than the 1. So I put in the less than symbol. Again, using the calculator to figure out what the decimals are. Lastly, look here at number 8. It wants me to put these in order from least to greatest. That means from the smallest to the biggest. So I have negative 415%. Negative square root of 17. Negative 4.1 with the 1 repeating. And then negative 4.08. Well, the negative 4.08 will go right here. And then that's negative 4.11. I just put that extra 1 because I want to go maybe 2 places after the decimal. Here, I just move that decimal 2 places because when we change a percent to a decimal, we move it 2 places. So that's negative 4.15. Then the last one I want to do is the square root of 17. Again, it's the calculator. I take 17, hit the square root key, and I want negative. I'm going to go 2 places after a decimal because with 2 places, I can figure out where basically what I need to compare. So that's 4.12. Now this gives me enough that I'm able to compare them. So my smallest one, remember these are negative, so as the smaller it gets bigger. So my negative 415% goes right there. That's the smallest one, which is really right about here. So negative 415%. The next one is the negative square root of 17 because that's the next one. Then I look for the next smallest one, and that actually is that one. So negative 4.1 repeating. And it's actually just a little bit bigger than 4.1 because it keeps on going. And then here's the negative 4.08, and that actually is the smallest one. So when putting the numbers in order or comparing the numbers, turn them all into decimals. And normally if you go most likely 1 to 2 places after the decimal, sometimes 3, you'll be able to compare them in order to figure out which one is smaller and which one is bigger.